There's Joey. Perfect timing. Okay, we have reached the 3 o'clock hour. I'm going to call this meeting of the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission to order. It is Tuesday, November 5th, and welcome to all. We can start, let's see, a roll call, but we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Okay, next thing on the agenda is our public comment period. Seeing that we have no public, we will close the public comment period and move on to item number 4, the appointment of one finance committee member. And with that, I'm going to appoint Raymond Bill Altman, our vice chair, to the finance committee. Susan, if you would make that plain as day in the minutes so we can get our signature card correctly filled out at the bank. We'd appreciate that.
Got it.
Okay, we're going to adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee and move on to our consent agenda.
Chris has a question.
I'm ignoring Chris.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
He's giving me the
I'm
sting
sorry,
eye.
I did not hear you.
Yeah, the chair does have a privilege to appoint. The chair appoints the finance committee members.
Currently, it's just me. Oh, and Blake, I'm sorry, and Jerry, well.
Heck, I ain't out of here yet.
And and Jerry
And
is
Hemmingson.
Jerry Hemmingson is still on the signature card as well.
Oh,
So
really?
with Blake calling it quits, we needed to have more than just one person, which would have been just me.
So in this way, I think we're going to be streamlining the paperwork, given that we traditionally have our vice chair become the chair. I mean, that's a future decision, right? But CPH gets
Hey,
cranky.
no problem.
Clarity
I
on the appointment.
I apologize for missing your question.
No, it's not a matter. Really?
Now you know, rubber stamps are just flying. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda for policy and administrative, if there's no other questions. We have the minutes of August 6th. It's going to be a tough meeting, I can tell. Am I going to need to separate them down there? We got a motion from Commissioner Borges to separate Blake and
We're just laughing at you.
yes,
Separate you.
I'm glad I can laugh along with you. Okay, item B in consent is adopt resolution 2025-14 approving the master fund transfer agreement and authorizing the executive director and legal counsel to execute all related agreements and documents with the California Department of Transportation. C is adopt resolution 2025-15 approving amendment 1 to the 2024 overall work program. TAC and staff recommendation is to adopt that resolution. D is the GHD contract amendment, and E is a Transportation Development Act claim form. Is there any? Well, there's still no public in the room, so we'll forego public comment. Is there any questions or comments from the commission members?
Move to approve consent.
We have a motion to approve consent. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Inscore and a second by Commissioner Borges. Susan, would you poll the vote, please?
Okay. Commissioner Inscore.
Yes.
Commissioner Borges.
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Commissioner Altman. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
Yes.
Okay. Tasha Alstrand
Yes.
and Chair Short.
Yes. Okay, item F, under policy and administrative, we have our carbon reduction program policy and call for projects. TAC and staff recommendation by poll vote is to approve the carbon reduction program policy and call for project. Tamara, do you have anything for us on this?
I do. So this is going to end up, the carbon reduction program is going to end up being about 160-ish thousand dollars of federal funding over the course of 5 years. So federalizing a $53,000 a year funding over 5 years. The person who is in charge of this program left their position sometime last April, May, and the position has not been filled. And Caltrans hadn't really realized that all of the questions and queries and everything about this program was going into an unmonitored mailbox. So it's, so some people are ahead and some people are really stymied like I am. Most organizations, but not all of them, have more money than we have for federalizing funding. We're not sure what direction we're going to go in this. That will be a conversation that we'll have in December or January. I don't know where this, I don't know how we're going to pull this all together. You have to have a document called an E76 completed by, I think, August or September. And that's a long process. It's, basically getting your project ready to go out to bid and, okay, you're ready to go. So there's a lot of work to federalize a project when we haven't even selected a project between now and then. Caltrans is holding a statewide meeting about these funds because so many of us are asking so many questions and there are very few answers. I've invited the TAC to attend the meeting where this topic will be discussed, so the TAC members will get the information as directly as I will. But we're going to have to figure out how to have a carbon reduction project. It can be a phase, but if you do, say, pre-construction, you have to have a certified environmental document, for example. You have to have a product at the end of spending the money. You can't just sort of work on something and then stop. I'm thinking we may end up in a position where we spend the first year of funding on a document, like a planning project or a project initiation document, if any of our partners have something like that, or an eligible project, like a carbon reduction eligible project that can be federal. All the paperwork in on time. So it's a bit of a headache for a little bit of money. I mean, it's certainly worth $50,000 a year to do the work, but you still have to find the fitting project,
Is it $50,000? Is it worth it?
Well, it depends on what you're doing with the money, who's run, we don't know yet. I'll let you know in 5 years. I'm still here. I was in a meeting on a Friday evening, 2 weeks ago, and somebody called it, a death by 10,000 grants, like it's, all those little things. But this is not a grant. It's not a request. It's an allocation. So we have an allotted amount of money. The urban regions, it's happening differently, but for the rural regions, we have this set amount by population. Projects that reduce the carbon. So pedestrian and bike projects, electric vehicle projects, transit projects are, I would say those are the overarching, anything that's supporting, and I shouldn't say electric vehicle, zero emission vehicle of whatever sort of charging stations. But, if you build anything, it still has to be federalized. So to put in charging stations and have them be federalized and have all of that done on time for the first year, I don't know, So with this call for projects, and we have to do a call for projects because it's required to be competitive. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the call for projects. We don't have a timing set on this, but given that we're still getting information in, in the TAC meeting, a week ago, we thought that we had more time, but that it was the first step, the programming step that needed to be done by September, but August, I can't remember the date, but it's actually the E76 date. It has to be complete by then. So that's a very different kind of end date. So I don't know what we're doing with this. So we're taking the first step to get started. This has to be a two-step process. If we take the second step in December, that would be great. There's a good chance we'll take it in January instead. So have to see where we end up.
Just a quick question, Tamara. I know that this is a reimbursable project-based funding thing. Does the money come to us and then we do the reimbursement to, if somebody comes up with a, let's say a small project, right? So will they be applying, is this going to be like a federal reimbursable type of thing? Or do we actually have the money ourselves and we'll be reimbursing?
So the Transportation Commission is an eligible applicant. We could apply for the funding and then administer the program. We do planning. We're the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, so we're not going to build anything. So we're not going to need an E76. But if the city or the county or transit were to have an awarded project, it's their project with the federal government. Del Norte Local Transportation Commission is not a pass-through. So there's no money on our table or in our bank or in the city's bank or anywhere else. You run it like you would a federal grant.
I just can't even envision anybody going, any entity here going through that kind of process for this limited amount of money. It'd make more sense to me for us to apply for it and use it just to work with partners from a planning standpoint only. It seems like there's a lot better chance of doing planning work than there is any kind of construction with it coming at $53,000 a year. I mean, because even if you banked our allocation all the way, then you're running up against the 2030 timeline. Numbers just don't add up to me other than us applying as the Transportation Commission to be able to have that as accessible funding for potential planning for the city, the county, the
region,
the
a
region,
tribe,
the tribe, the transit
Yeah.
authority, something. It's just my thought. I just can't imagine just putting it out there as somebody else is going to apply for this. Way too much work and time and staff associated it for way too little money. But that's.
Well, I expect that from your own boards, you'll be hearing from your own staff about their thoughts on this eventually. I would be happy to bring it into planning and do the $53,000 a year of planning work. And I agree that we could easily spend an additional $53,000 of planning. We have to keep it in these areas. It has to be, but we haven't updated the active transportation plan since 2017. There's, I know that would qualify. I know transit has some things going on. So what happens in terms of our next steps is that we'll release a request for proposals. We'll all need to apply for the funding. The TAC will review the proposals. The decision will come back to the commission for a vote. But I believe that your organizations need to have permission to apply for funds before they apply. I'm not sure about that, but I believe that that's the case just from, the history. So if that happens within your own agencies, that will happen in a city council meeting and a county supervisor meeting. That if there's only one applicant, then the application is not scored. It's reviewed for completeness. If it meets the criteria, then it moves forward without all of the competitive process, scoring, et cetera. It is a competitive process because we're posting an RFP or a request for projects, whatever it is. Yeah. So that will happen in your own meetings, but that's what the process is. So our next step will be to release the call for projects. Do you have a preference? I mean, at the end of the day, it's your decision. If you would like for me to release that call for projects sooner rather than later. You know, the TAC, some members were okay with whatever time frame. There was especially one TAC member who wanted to delay until we had all the information that we needed right in front of us. Given the lack of information, I don't know at what point we're ever going to have complete information. It's just one of those things that happens. And so if you'd like for me to release the call for projects sooner rather than later, I can do that. If we delay this, it makes the end date is still the end date. So just let me know.
Any thoughts from the commission? Or seems like earlier is better to me, but that's up to everybody here.
I would just I'd roll it out. I can't even envision a project that the city would even step into with everything that we've got going on right now, that we have the bandwidth to even think about anything with this kind of amount of money. On the other hand, I can envision in the next year plus the city having some conceptual things that having planning dollars to work with the Transportation Commission could be, especially with some of the things that are happening with the entryway and so forth, as we even push closer to the city limits on 101 and working with Caltrans. I think there's some possibilities there. I would be shocked if the city, if the invitation for projects went out that we applied for something. I can't even imagine. I don't know. I can't speak for the county, but I think that we put it out there and then kind of agree that let's just have one application so it's not competitive and get the money available to the local transportation commission so that it will be available for our entities going forward if there's planning that we need to be done. I mean, that's one of the most important things that this commission has done historically, has been able to be that resource person to get projects initiated and so forth that are transportation oriented. So that's what I think we should do. But I'm also on the way out, so.
He keeps rubbing that in. I don't know why. Any other comments from the commission about this timeline, whether you'd like to see it rolled out sooner than later?
There's no opportunity to accumulate the cash.
We can accumulate the first 2 years, but we don't need, well, the last time I was notified, it may have been finalized, but we have estimated numbers for the trailing 3 years, so we cannot. The deadline for the first year of allocation is the one that I'm talking about that's in August. That if we spent only 1 year on a planning project, the other 4 years could be decided later. But it's the timing crunch. So we can do 2 years at a time. That's $105,000 estimated. It's, but then you're on a hold for the trailing 3 years to catch up.
I just don't see another scenario. Makes sense to me. Maybe you have maybe the TAC has maybe the TAC has another idea of how to do this. The numbers just don't add up to a project. If as Chris had just suggested, I mean, if we could bank, $200,000, and then maybe, but if we're only can do 2 years at a time, and you don't know exactly what those numbers are going to be, who can plan out a project, that you don't know what the remaining funding is going to be and the availability of it. So
I believe that we can do 2 years at a time. We actually don't even, every indication is that we can, but I don't have a for certain answer on that either.
gotta love it. And again, Tamara, I'm not making more. I don't want to make more work for you either, because I know the whole process of managing this and federalizing any of this is a lot of work. I'm just trying to think of what would be the practical way that we could actually allocate this funds and do something for our community. And that's the only way that I see it.
Yeah. Well, it's, if we did planning work, and whether it was the Transportation Commission based plan, or we put it in the overall work program as an example and did a, in a future year. I mean, we have to decide what plan we're going to do now. But if in a future year we did different planning work, the city could, administer the program, but the Transportation Commission could also administer the $50,000 a year every year of federal funding. I would probably request assistance from, for the paperwork on that. It's one of the things that I'm certainly learning this year is, running the $300,000 planning grant that we have for South Beach, the climate adaptation sea level rise grant that we have there, plus trying to put in all the other work within, because the box doesn't get bigger, because we have more work and everybody faces this. It's a little bit different because there's no flex in my time. I don't have a staff of 5 to shuffle things around and figure it out. So I'm feeling that crunch, and that's the basis for many of the changes in the OWP that's on your agenda, is that I can only do so much work. And even if I could do more work, my contract doesn't allow it. So, which is fine. I'm trying to do less work, not more work, frankly. So I would probably ask for assistance in the management of the funding, because I'm feeling it right now with the planning grant. And yeah, I still have to get the core work done, and that's been a crunch. So just to, fill in a little bit of one of the things that the city was talking about is potentially taking out a section of Front Street or adding on something with that project. A lot of their environmental work is done already. You'd still have to start over and recertify and have the environmental phase for this project. So it's not quite starting from scratch, but it's a whole different process, and they would still have to go through all of that. So not every project has to start from the very, very basic step if you have a project that's federalized already. I just don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the response is to the call for projects.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, with that, a little bit of confusing, what do we do discussion.
Yeah, I'm assuming we want to take the funding in some fashion, right?
I would think so.
I would make a motion that we approve the carbon reduction program policy and call for projects.
I have a motion by Commissioner Inscore. Do we have a second? I have a second by Commissioner Altman. Susan, would you pull the vote?
All right, Commissioner Altman,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
No.
okay, Commissioner Guarino,
Yes.
Commissioner Borges,
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore,
Yes.
Tasha Alstrand,
Yes.
and Chair Short.
Yes. Moving on to our discussion items.
Can I
Cameron?
just, a point of clarity? Would you, this is just direction to
Sure.
staff. Are you directing staff to release the call for projects promptly, or to wait until we have more information?
Like I say, I think it would work better to have it put out earlier rather than later, but up to the consensus
say
of the
roll
commission. Yeah? Anybody else? Yep.
Staff.
Yep. So pretty much consensus is sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Tamara, did I hear you right earlier? Do we have Julia here for the Clean California update?
We do.
You want to do that next? Julia, are you ready to do that?
Yes, I'm ready to do that.
Great. Well, you're on.
All right, let me figure out how to share my screen and we will go forward. So, I've got let's see, share screen. go. I think you're seeing my screen now.
There it is, yes.
So, Tasha or Tatiana let me know that you guys were interested in kind of a wrap up. So Clean California was a 3-year program. And what I have today for you is a wrap up. And I'm sure you remember 3 years ago when Governor Newsom announced that Clean California was going to be a signature program to help us get out of the pandemic. It was transformative to remove litter, create jobs, and beautify California. And the way that money was divided, it was actually 1.1 billion when he started, but the local grant program was so popular that he added another $100 million and brought it to a $1.2 million program. And the way I explain this is it was about a third litter removal, a third beautification projects, and a third local grants. And Del Norte County did participate in all of those, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So I think usually when I make this type of question, what most organizations want to know is what was in it for us or what will be in it for us. And in the case of Del Norte, we have both of those. Clean California was really by the community and for the community, so community engagement was key. And Del Norte did have beautification projects, litter removal, dump days, and local grants. So let's start with a project that has not yet been built, but we are getting ready and planning to build in the very near future. And that is new state entry monuments. I'm sure everyone has noticed that Oregon upped the game. We had nicer entry signs with the California poppies, but Oregon did up their game a year or two ago. And that got us thinking that it might be time for us to do the same. So on Del Norte 199, we're going to replace that California poppy sign. It's nice, but it's definitely aging. Even from the picture, you can tell that bends and a little looking aged. So the drafts that we have, it's not final yet. We're still working with the vendor on the final, but we'll have these 3D bears because they're this, bears are a California thing, welcoming people to California. The size of this is about 15 feet tall and 17 feet wide. We're still, again, working out the exact details. But this is the entry on Highway 199. And, we're still looking for exactly what it's going to look like. But this gives you an idea of the scale. It will be a pretty big monument. And we'll have a pullout there. There's already a pullout where people can stop and look and take pictures. We're hoping people will stop and post on social media and do pictures. We have a couple more just mock-ups for you to take a look at. On the coast, though, we are thinking of changing up the animals so that we could do the bears, but we were thinking of seals or sea lions, or these are just, these aren't the actual images. We're just trying to figure out what we're doing, and we're waiting for the graphics to go out with a survey. So you may remember last winter, we did do a survey for 199 and bears, and the design was pretty well settled based on that survey. For 101, we're going to use the same California feature, the state of California, and these signs. Some of our mock-ups have a wave here, and I'm definitely open to feedback. I presented to the Board of Supervisors. They gave us some excellent feedback, and we're looking for feedback. But once we finish this design, we'll be putting a monument on 101 as well as 199. And that, I expect those to be completed probably by spring, certainly by June 30th. Any questions or comments on the monuments? Or do you want to do that at the end?
Anything from anybody? Or we could wait till the end. Let's do that. Let's wait till the end, Julia. Thank you.
Perfect. So then we'll go on to, so those monuments fall under the beautification, the state funded beautification, and that third of the project will fund those two projects. The next third of the Clean California money is removing litter. And Del Norte participated in quite a few ways. We expanded Adopt a Highway. For the 3 years of Clean California, we were paying a $250 stipend. As Clean California is wrapping up, that stipend has ended. But we also did the free large item dump days, and we did those here's a bunch of pictures. This one right here is my personal favorite. That guy was so happy to get rid of tires. He made 2 trips and was willing to put a tire in the front seat of his car. That's fairly dedicated, in my opinion. But we partnered with the Yurok tribe, with the county solid waste. We scheduled the large item dump days, and we brought 1,400 tires out of Klamath. So that was from the tribe in the Klamath area. Del Norte County seems to be a hotbed of tires. We brought thousands and thousands of tires. This is the line at Klamath. The Yurok tribe partnered and helped us. We filled up 4 semi-trucks in Klamath alone, full of tires. I think there was 2 in Gasky. Unbelievable amounts of tires. So these were entirely free dump days. People could bring anything they wanted. We recycled the appliances. We recycled the tires to a cement plant in Redding, where they burn them to create cement, use them for fuel. So at least they're not going to a landfill. We also accepted mattresses, and those went for recycling. So we did have, I thought I had it in here, I maybe covered it up, but we did events in Klamath, Gasky, Smith River, and in Crescent City. So we worked with Ted Ward for solid waste where he thought the best places were. We used the transfer stations so that people could learn, establish a pattern of where they should be taking their trash. And the other thing we did was held a number of mattress-only events at Humboldt Moving and Storage. And so Humboldt Moving and Storage accepts mattresses free. They have a limited number of hours, but we really wanted people to learn about that service. And that's provided by what's called Buy Mattress. When you buy a mattress, you pay a little fee, and that fee in turn funds the recycling program. So all of District 1, we served a lot of people. Dump days were very popular, and we got a lot of trash. So that was one of the benefits of Clean California for District 1. Education-wise, the education campaign got off to a little bit of a slow start. We had some community events and cleanups in April for community days. The last 2 years in Crescent City, we've participated in the South Beach cleanup 2 years in a row. We've done some other community cleanups, providing, loaning out pickers, providing blue bags for Clean California, and done tabling from the health fair to some other events, so that we can just talk about litter and, keeping litter out of the environment. So there's been a number of quite a bit of support that way. Here's some more community day. And then we've had a K-12, this went out last winter, K-12 contest. The Just One Piece campaign is out now. And so those ads are running on social media, on TV, however, and I think they're on various internet sites. And then there's the new Clean California community designation. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about the exact criteria for that at the end. But District 1 has only one community that has done that, and that's Clear Lake Oaks. So there's lots of opportunity if any community in Del Norte is interested in becoming a Clean California designated community. So it's not that difficult, and you're actually already doing a lot of the things that would need to be done to qualify. And then during the Clean California period, there was enhanced litter cleanup. And one of the things we did was we had a crew of people with barriers to employment. So you'll remember that Clean California was especially to create jobs. And so we worked with Betty Chin's group, and she works with the unhoused populations in Eureka, and they traveled for 2 hours in every direction. So Del Norte County was served by the Eureka group, and they would travel the highway. They basically started at the Mendocino line and worked. We had one group in Ukiah and one in Eureka, and they would start at 2 hours south of their home base and work the highway a couple of miles each day, cleaning up litter. And unfortunately, with that program, with the Clean California programming, the 3-year program ending, we are no longer have those crews, but you did benefit from enhanced litter patrol, both from Caltrans staff and from the special person crews, which is what we call the people with barriers to employment. And here's a picture of some of the folks. When we saw them out, instead of the Caltrans orange vests, they were in the yellow vests. So they had employment wraparound services to try to help them. A number of them did gain, quite a few of them gained full-time employment as a result of the extra help they got, the stability that's provided by having a job and that. So there's some pictures before and after in Crescent City. And also these guys in the orange vest are our crews out doing enhanced litter patrols 2 days a month. So Caltrans really did work on removing litter from the environment along the state highways. And that's a pretty good cleanup there. So that is the litter component, which was about a third. And then we'll move on to the final third of Clean California, and that is local grants. And I know earlier in the meeting, someone said that you guys have a lot of grants, and I'm happy to say that Clean California has contributed to that. Del Norte County has almost $8 million in funding coming through the Clean California program. The Crescent City, the whole Front Street project, we have some components that are funded by Clean California, and the Yurok tribe, and that's $2.988 million, and the Yurok tribe got a $5 million grant. So I'll tell you a little bit about each of those. So of the improvements Crescent City is doing downtown, these are some that are funded by the Clean California local grant. And you guys are undoubtedly familiar with that project, but we are funding a portion of that. We're working on the signage here and working with your project team. And then the Yurok tribe has 8 different projects. One of those has 4 sites, and they're doing improvements to recreation and facilities at all of those sites. So it really covers downriver, upriver. They are working along through the whole reservation to really try to bring recreational and cleanup opportunities to the entire tribe. So that's their $5 million grant, and they're working on that as we speak. So then, this is the community designation. I have a little error here in this disappearing, but the community designation, if you are interested, it looks fuzzy on my screen when I see what I'm sharing. It's not fuzzy on my presentation, so I can send this out if you can't read it. But there are 15 different actions that are potential actions. A community that agrees to do 10 of them can apply to be a Clean California community. One is to sign the pledge, and another is actually to apply. So you've already got that. The community does cleanups. It has long-term planning. You've already got probably 6 or 8 of these completely in the bag already. So I think if either Crescent City or Del Norte County was interested in this designation, it would be relatively easy, and we can provide a little support for you if you want some help doing that. So that is the end of my presentation. Although I'm happy to talk for hours about Clean California if you really want to sit here.
Well, thank you, Julie. Appreciate it.
And you're like, no, thank you. But I would love to have some feedback, ideas, questions.
Well, feedback from me is that you mentioned the tires being part of the Solid Waste Management Authority. If I'm not mistaken, we were told that we were the clear winner for all the organizations from San Francisco north as far as our ability to gather tires.
Yes. Yes, you were.
I appreciated how it was presented, like we have a limit of 4 tires, but if you have more, go ahead and bring them anyway. and it was kind of successful. So it was great to see all of the stuff that showed up. It was a very, very successful few events. So I was appreciative to see that come to our community because everybody came together and got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. So that was a great part of what Clean California did for us in the last few years. But anybody else got any comments or questions about Julia's presentation?
I think my only comment in regard to the gateway signage, I personally kind of like something that becomes iconic. It's going to be there for a long period of time. And so I think that the bears simply represent that. I think that would be a nice iconic thing. I think that different images in different areas sort of lose some of the impact of them, but that's just my thought. I feel like that some of the other animals and stuff could make it look cute, and that's just my thought. Something that represents California. It's kind of like the new ones that the state of Oregon put up. They're just, when you see them both, it's like, oh, I know where I am type of thing. And so I'm sure that there's creative people who want to make them regional and this and that. But that's, I guess I'm just old.
Yeah, that was
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
You agree with
So
that,
are
Tasha?
you suggesting we would do the 2 bears in both locations?
I would be fine with that, but that's just me.
Yeah, my suggestion was, was more of regional. Yeah, we do have a lot of bears. That's true. But yeah, my thought was to make it a little more regional. We're the gateway to the redwood region, so I suggested a big redwood tree. That's kind of tough to make out of concrete and make it, so it doesn't get vandalized or crawled on or stuff or something like that. So I was reminded of that and understand the realization of of how that probably wouldn't work very well for a long-term beautification project, but can certainly appreciate having the same sign on both sides. Anything else for Julie? No? Nope, I guess you're off the hook, Julia.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you for the invitation. And I think everyone can reach me through Tatiana if you have any other questions or input. I appreciate your support of the Clean California program in the last 3 years.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for being here. We
Thank you.
appreciate the presentation. Okay, Tamara, we want to go on to our discussion items.
Caltrans milestones
Let's
report.
Let's do that.
It's in your agenda packet. If you have any questions, Tasha's here. She might want to point out some things. That's the number one place. When I get a question about a Caltrans project, this report is the first place I go. Even if the question is coming from one of you. I just say, let me pull up the report that we had in our last agenda packet. It's, for the most part, it's right there and it's easy to understand.
It's a pretty handy report. Yeah.
So-
Tasha, did you have something for us?
I was just going to mention that moving forward, we're going to begin creating these milestone packages quarterly. Our projects just don't progress enough month to month to change enough. So the next one would be in December and then, quarterly from there. So
Okay.
just expect that. And then, of course, if there are significant changes or things like that, we'll keep you updated.
Okay. Well, thank you. Do you have any questions or comments about the milestone report? Seeing none, let's move on to our South Beach Climate Resilience Plan public meeting notices.
So our
Down at the very
public
bottom of our
meetings coming
packet.
up. I'm hoping that all of you can attend one or both of the meetings. One is at the harbor, and then in early December, one will be at Elk Valley Rancheria in their meeting room. So those are our partners in the project, both the Harbor District and Elk Valley Rancheria are community partners. And So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be, I think it's an interesting project. It's, learning things about, climate adaptation, sea level rise. We don't have as much sea level rise as some folks think because we get a lot of California averages for sea level rise, but we are at the very low because our ground is rising at the same time as our sea level is rising. So the differential is still there. We still have sea level rise, but it's not nearly as much as it is in, Central or Southern California because of our plates. So that was an interesting thing, something different that I think that GHD's team is used to doing sea level rise projects where they have a much bigger differential. We do have significant problems with storm surge. That's compounded by the smaller amount of sea level rise, and we've talked about this extensively. So in the meetings, we're going to be talking about, people's thoughts, the GH team's thoughts and ideas about what are potential solutions, what are strategies, what are things to think about in the project areas. And I actually have found the project really interesting. They have, I'm not an engineer, and it's not my area of study, and they've had ideas. I thought, well, that is interesting, actually. So I enjoyed the work in general. I find it challenging, and I'm learning new things. I like learning things. So I'm encouraging everybody to go to the meetings. We're going to continue to promote the meetings, especially on social media. The Chamber of Commerce, like always, has been a good partner in helping get the word out. And so if any of you belong to an organization and you can share helping to get the word out, we'd appreciate it. I can send you the individual file, or you can, pull it from the agenda packet, whatever works for you, but share as much and as often as possible.
So Tamara, in the agenda packet, I only have the one flyer for November 12th, but you mentioned another meeting in December.
We will have another meeting in December, and I didn't have the final flyer. I think it's final now, but I didn't have the final flyer when I posted the agenda. I thought I would, and I didn't. So but again, I think it's the first or second week in December.
Okay, that's all I was curious about. It was date and time for that second meeting. And you said that was going to be at the Rancheria
December
building?
3rd.
December 3rd.
December 3rd in the evening. I have 5:30 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same
December 3rd at
same
5.
time as the first meeting, 5:30 to 7:30.
Yep, and we have a commission meeting on that day also.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Great.
December 3rd at 5:30 is the Valley Rancheria in-person public meeting. We'll be talking in that meeting. It will be more focused on the US 101 South Beach area. Both meetings will cover all topics, but the focus of the meeting at the harbor will be more focused on the Anchor Way area of the harbor and potential, concepts, what folks' thoughts are, more focused in that area. So commercial, if you know commercial fishermen, sport fishermen, anybody who uses the harbor and harbor area goes down there regularly, I want to, come take a look.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Tamara? Okay. Well, hope to see y'all at one or both of those meetings. Moving on to our travel policy then.
So I have an updated travel policy. I was thinking about including it in here, but it's a lengthy document and it's all full of details. The travel policy is a Caltrans travel policy. It's tied to funding. It's not a decision that the commission would make. Are we going to accept this travel policy or not? It's a travel policy that I'm tied to by our fund sources. So in terms of having an independent travel policy that is different from Caltrans policy, is a little bit tricky, and I wouldn't recommend it. The county policy is slightly different. I would never recommend to follow it because those slight differences is where an RTPA can get into trouble. The amount of trouble you can get into by, taking a travel misstep is way out of proportion to the amount of funding and the misstep. I don't mean going to Bermuda, calling it travel. Staying in a hotel that is, not on the list or costs $7 more, whatever. So I follow the Caltrans travel policy. It's tied to our funding sources, and we don't have one independent from that. But there is an updated travel policy, changes some of the amounts.
I can only assume that Caltrans's policy is not problematic as far as travel that you need to accomplish. I'm sure it's perfectly reasonable. Apparently, I'm wrong.
Wait,
But yeah.
when and I,
It's a
and
state
we don't
policy,
travel
so
for
it's
work
not
like
perfect,
we used
but,
to. We don't travel for work like we used to. Used to be that if you wanted to attend a California Transportation Commission meeting, you had to get on an airplane and show up or drive several hundred miles or whatever. And the meetings are all blended meetings right now, and the participation in the meetings is much greater. So I see a lot of benefit in that. Not to say that it isn't sometimes important to show up in person. In the odd occasion that if I had a receipt that was over the allowable amount, I still fill in the allowable amount. Because it's hard to stay in a hotel and all of these expenses are allowable, then get a car, an Uber, or whatever, to take you to the meeting and this and that and the other. And if I can stay in a hotel and if it's $15 more than the allowable amount, I don't care. I don't ever request a reimbursement for more than the allowable amount, and I make it work for myself, and that's just part of doing business.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
So I, even though all of the expenses would be reimbursable, it becomes too difficult sometimes. And especially in some of the areas like Sacramento, San Francisco, those rates have gone up in those areas. The rates of, even in Humboldt County, the rate has gone up above the minimum rate in the summer season. So they make there are some changes in the rates for summer versus winter seasons in different areas. That was, one of the bigger changes that I've noticed is that you have seasonal rates for different areas. But I follow the policy, and, if my receipt says $10 and the allowable amount is $8, I request the $8 and I don't care. And it's within the rules, and so I make it
Right.
work.
Yeah, I understand. Anybody got any comments or questions on the travel policy? Okay. Well, move on to item 6, which is Policy Advisory Committee comments and reports. Anybody have anything for the good of the order? No? Okay. Tasha, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Well, we will now then adjourn as the Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission, and by poll vote, approve and adopt the actions taken by the Policy Advisory Committee in the items listed above in our agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Inscore and a second by Commissioner Howard. Still seeing no public, we'll forego public comment. Susan, would you poll the vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Altman,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Borges,
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore,
Yes.
and Chair Short.
Yes. Okay, with that, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting until our next meeting, which is Tuesday, December 3rd at 3 p.m. See y'all there.
Bye.